Oh. Recording. And so it looked a little bit at at module 13. I'm going to go into module 14 now. This is a little bit more SQL here. Those of you who have worked with Access are used to creating queries. And in Access, it's kind of strange because you save the query, even though you don't write it in SQL. Now, it does work in SQL. You can give those to Valerie at some point. You don't have to run them over there right this second. There is SQL running underneath it, but you save the query. And as such, the query isn't just run ad hoc like it is in our system, where we have pop open this little window. We say new query. Now we can write anything in there and we say execute it. And what we're really doing in Access, and there is a wasp in here. Well, I wish it would go away. In database platforms, we create views. Now, in most databases, you do have to have another permission, privilege given to you to create a view. In SQL Server, if you own the table, you may create a view on the table. And we make it real short and simple here. A view is simply an SQL statement, a select from where statement, that we have given a name and saved it in the database. And it acts like a table. In fact, it is a table. And when we remember when we did those derived tables back in chapter 9 under the subqueries? Right? We said select something, select from, and from, on the from, we had another SQL query there. And we had to give it a name. Thank you very much. You can. Okay. It's not critical that it get up there right this second. Okay. Well, you gave it a name. What you did within that query, you created a temporary view. Well, we can do that in SQL. Very handy. So pretty straightforward view, select from where, select vendors where the state is California. Just a plain old select from where query. To save this query as a view, it is create view, California vendors, as, and then the SQL select from where query. Now, similar to a table, I can't create a view that is already created. So I probably will need the drop table. Let me go over and okay. I'm grabbing an SQL statement from back in chapter 4 or so. This is an outer join that says to find all the vendors with no corresponding invoices. And so the first thing I do is I get my select from where. Well, if I want the unmatched vendors with no invoices, that's going to be an outer join. And it points to the table that has the ones where I want all records. So I want all records from vendors. Let me point with my mouse. I want all records from vendors. that and those that match from invoices. So I'm pointing the outer join at the left, the vendors. V.vendor ID is I.vendor ID. When you join, always join on a primary foreign key, and you won't go far wrong for this class particularly. I see people joining on kind of strange things. I see people joining on things like where the invoice ID equals the vendor ID, and they actually get some output because sometimes they are equal, but that makes no sense. That's not the linkage. Where the invoice number is null, and I can run this part of the query, I can run it just as a select from where query. If I highlight it and say execute, it will execute that query. Create view. Now, I usually will put in here if the object ID, name of the view, is not null, just like I would for a table, then drop view, view name. It's just, I want to run the whole script and get it running and test it. So I usually have that in there to recreate it. Creating a view is cheap. Creating a view, all it does is save the SQL. It doesn't duplicate any data. That's a nice thing about views. Bad thing about views, they don't run as fast as a table. Okay. Now, in SQL Server, the term Go does not appear in other platforms. SQL Server only. Create view must be the only statement inside of a Go block. Okay? So you have to bracket it by the Go's. Up until now, we have not, the Go, some people use them between all of their SQL statements, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. This is the first time we have seen a place where creating an index too, by the way, has to be inside of a Go block. So I say everything has to happen. Everything before the Go happens. Now we start a new program and create the view, and then we have to have a Go at the, it doesn't have to have a Go at the end of it, but that nothing else may follow it in that block. Okay. So you can't have a select statement in there. If I want to test it with a select statement, I have to have it in there. So let's see, we can test it. That should create the view. Demo view 1. When I say execute, it says, okay, I did it. Now that view demo view 1 exists, and when I select from it, it runs this query. Select, S-E-L-E, select everything from so I can select from it. Execute. And I get all of the vendors who have no invoices. And I have 89 of them in there. I get the same output as I would have gotten from that SQL query. I can further refine the query. When in my select from the view, I can further have a where on it. I have a where, order by, group by, anything. It is just a table. But can I insert into that table? Demo view 1. Why not? It's just a very limited piece of the underlying tables. The underlying table is a left outer join. If I tried to insert something into it, which table would it insert into? I think in this case, it might, if I gave it enough fields, it might be able to figure it out. But vendor name might not be unique, so it might get confused. Not all views are thus. Let's see, here's a view called valid invoices. So this is another one, invalid invoices, excuse me. Create view invalid invoices. And this particular one is going to show any vendor ID that is in the invoices table. Now, the vendor ID is a child key in the invoices table. What if I have a child that is not matched to a parent? I've got a problem. I have an invalid foreign key. Okay. Now, it is possible for that to happen. But if I turn off the constraint, if I say don't check that constraint, and I put an invalid record in there, which is what I did, I put an invalid foreign key in there and then turned the constraint back on. Now it has one invalid value in there. I might have a million, I don't know. I want to find it. Select vendor ID as X, v.vendor ID as Y. So I want to see the invoices and vendor ID from both invoices and vendor. From vendors, right outer join. In other words, I want everything from invoices, whether it's matched or not. And I'm going to say where the vendor ID is null. I'm going to execute, create it. I want to write a select splat. Show me all of these guys that we would get from this query. However, this is going to be now a view, and the view is going to act for us just like a table. And the results are that from the invoices, if I were to go over there and look, I have one vendor ID over there in the invoices table that says 999. Okay, questions? By the way, guys, particularly when we do the dates, make sure you have updated your AP database. Not that it matters to me if your code is correct, your code's correct, but if you haven't updated it on your computer, you're going to have old dates on there. So when I ask for something like, show me all the dates that are 30 days in the future, you might not have any because you created it at the beginning of the semester and the clock has advanced and all of them have gone off the clock. So it's important to create, to run that create AP. It'll just, any extra stuff, anything that you've changed in the data will go away. And now you and I will be looking at the same data set. So, do what? Create ap.sql. It's in module 2, page 5, I believe. And you should have downloaded it. And I told you to, put it someplace where you can always download it again. If you run it, it'll take it about 5 or 6 seconds to run. And it puts it all back, but it brings all the dates up to a current date. So you'll have stuff in there. You'll have invoices that are due in December. of this year. Whereas if you just ran it back in when we first came to class, well, you won't have any in December. They'll be due in September, October, all of them. One more thing, order by. What did we say about a table? A table is not ordered. A table is not ordered. A view is a table. An SQL statement can have an order by on it, but a view typically is not ordered. Now, SQL Server makes a liar out of me on this. SQL Server doesn't have a problem with putting order by on a view. Most databases do, however. Most databases will stop you if you try to have an order by, if you try to create a view with an SQL statement that has order by. Therefore, it is good practice not to do that, not to create an order by. Okay, so I like to avoid these. Now, I believe that if I had that in there, SQL Server would let me do it, but Oracle will definitely not. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, here's a view. Create view. Its name is update view. As select everything from vendors where the vendor state is not equal to California. I'll go into that next line in just a minute. Now, the question is, can I update this view? The answer is yes. I can insert, delete, update the data in this view because it is not based on a join. If you throw a join in there, it gets pretty tricky. I have to have all of the required fields. I cannot insert into a view that does not show me all of the required fields. They have to be there. This one has all fields, therefore I can insert into it. It doesn't have a top clause, doesn't have any order by or anything with it. Now, this extra little piece there that says with check option. When you create a view, many times you will create views. I wish that bug would go away. Many times you will create views for security purposes. For example, if my department is human resources, I am allowed to see anybody's HR record. With one exception, well, with certain exceptions. I cannot look at HR records from anybody who is in human resources. So I can't look at the record of my coworker. I can look at anybody else, but I can't see the records where it's HR. That typically goes to payroll or finance. They typically handle the HR records. Okay, so I would have create a view, select everything from HR database, from the HR table, whatever, personnel records, where department does not equal HR. Now, with check option, that means I can do anything to those records. I can update them, insert them, delete them, change them, except if they would not appear in the view. So for example, vendor state is equal to California. I can insert any record into that table, vendors, the underlying table. If I do an insert, for example, of this one, insert into update view, the state is equal to TX. Okay. Let me go ahead and create the view. If I execute, it accepted that row. That row has been inserted into the underlying table. So if I can find it, where vendor ID equals 125. So I'm going to find it is, in fact, inserted into the vendor's table. Execute, and there it is. And I live in Texas. Okay, that one is in the view. Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And I'm going to try to insert a record that is in California. But if I insert a record into that view that is in California, that record would not be in the view. So I am trying to change the set of records that I am not allowed to see by the view. Are you with me? Okay. Now, when I try to do this, I try to execute that, I get an attempt to fail because the target view either specifies with check option. What does the other one say? Or spans a view. Yeah, you're trying to do something that's going to fall out of the view. And that's what with check option means. When you create a view with check option, it's not Czechoslovakia, it means that check to make sure that the data, when you finish that update, so if you tried to change a vendor state from Illinois to CA, California, it would block you. You can't do it. You can change it from IL to AR, you can move them to Arkansas, but they can't go, you can't put California in there because that's the criteria of the view. Questions? Yes. Most of the time, if you just simply create the view, it doesn't stop you from, and the view is updatable. For the most part, if the view is going to be updatable, it will say select everything from some table. Now that's clearly an updatable view. And if it has a where clause on it, and you say with check option, that means that you cannot violate that where clause with anything that you're updating, inserting. Deleting, you can delete anything. No, you don't have to say with check option. If you don't say with check option, then it will allow you to insert a record for California, insert a record that does not appear in the view. For the most part, you create a view to give you security. Many times you create a view to give you security. Therefore, you probably want that with check option. Purpose of what? Yes, most of the time when you give that to the user, you are trying to restrict the user to certain set of data. So you are responsible for Texas. So I say, I give you a view and I say, the view says select everything from vendors where the state is TX. Donna is handling Oklahoma. Select from where the state is OK. If I say with check option, that means that you cannot get out of Texas. You cannot insert a record into Louisiana. You cannot update a record such that it's no longer Texas. You can't delete TX from it. So that would cause it not to be in your view. No, that's not exactly true. In order for a view to be updatable, if I selected a subset of the records, then those records that I selected would be able to update. If I want you to be able to insert into it, I have to give you all of the fields that are required or not defaulted. So I have to be able to insert a record just with what I have. If I don't give you the primary key, then clearly you cannot insert. You don't need everything. For example, in my for an early discussion of setting up a table, I pointed out we never delete from a table, almost never. What we do is we have a field in there called active that is either 1 or 0, yes or no. It's active or it's not. So a doctor's office, a doctor is never going to delete the medical records of their patient. It will never happen. But the patient moves on. And now they're no longer a patient of this doctor. What happens is the doctor will set a field from active yes to now it becomes no. That's probably a view. And the view probably does not include that active yes no. So I'm probably give you the view active patients where the view is equal to yes. And what I'm probably going to do is set a trap on that record. And that's the first topic of the next class called the trigger. And it's one of the first ones we do, where when you do delete it, when you come up there and you highlight that in that view, you highlight it and you press the delete button, or you execute a SQL statement, which you probably just press a button that executes an SQL statement, says delete that record. The system says, no, don't delete that record. Just go set that field to active from yes, change it to no, and it disappears as far as you're concerned. It dropped out of the view. So in that case, if I wanted you to be able to do that, I could give you that active yes no field in your view. If you change that from yes to no, it disappears. It's still there. It's still in the underlying table. You just don't see it anymore. Okay, that's a common use for a view. And that one would be created without the check option. If I want to affect security, by not allowing you to, I've got the set of records that you're allowed to see, the set that you're not allowed to touch. Okay, I don't want you to be able to touch this other set for anything. That's a check option. If I don't care, no check option. Let's see. Okay. I pointed out that when you create the views, they're pretty easy to do. This, you won't find this to be a real demanding set of exercises. You should get done with this one in about just a few minutes. Most SQL platforms will not allow you to create an ordered view. Why? A view is a table as far as you are concerned. Therefore, since a table is not ordered, therefore a view cannot be ordered most places. So if you have an order by or a top clause, for example, a top clause typically does not work on a view. Okay, here's how we make it work. We use the idea by burying it down in a subselect. Create view, top 10 due dates as. Select everything from, and what have I got here? A derived table. So I'm hiding the ordered table down a layer because Oracle would not allow me to create an ordered view, I'm going to get tricky. I'm going to trick it. And so the SQL that's actually selecting the records isn't ordered, but underneath it says selects top 10 invoice due date from invoices ordered by ascending, descending. Now, in SQL Server, I could create the view directly from this statement, directly from the subselect. It would allow me to do that. But since most of them won't, MySQL will not, Oracle will not, most of them will not allow you to save a query as ordered. Access will. So I guess that's where this got it. We hide it down in a subquery. And now I say select from that query, and now I'm free to order it any way I want to see it. Notice that this one is descending, and I'm now saying, oh, turn it around and let me see it the other way. Okay. If all I say is select star from top 10 due dates, I will see the top 10, but I'm not guaranteed that they will be ordered unless I say to order it. That the query that's coming from the view. If I don't say order it, I'm not guaranteed they will be ordered. They'll be the top 10 rows, but they may or may not be ordered. Questions? That's a handy little trick if you are ever in. It should be used in SQL Server. Just get used to the fact, I'm going to just say it like this. A view cannot be ordered. And if you find one that can be ordered, it still holds. A view cannot be ordered. Okay. The fact that SQL Server lets you get away with it doesn't mean that you should do it. Most of them won't. Yeah, it's a derived table. Yes, it is. Right. Yes, in the derived table, it is. If you like, the derived table is a temporary view. And it has the order by on it. That's okay. From my view that I'm creating, top 10 due dates, the view I'm creating here, I'm hiding the order by in the subselect is all. So now the outer select is just hey, take everything from that. So that's going to give me the top 10. And now you sort them any way you want. You can process them further in your SQL. So that just gives me, I very seldom ever do derived tables. Well, I did one here, but I will typically, if I'm going to be doing it more than once, I find it to be better off, I just create a view and then I join that view with whatever I want. Remember when we were creating those derived tables back in the subselect chapter? Most of the time I would create a view on those. And then you would have, it would just look like a plain old table join. Okay. If I'm going to join a view, I have to have the foreign key and the primary key. If I don't have a foreign key, I can't join the view effectively. So if I'm going to join a view, that means I have to have either the primary key or the foreign key in there. It doesn't make sense to try to join something if I don't have that primary key, foreign key. And I see a lot of them will come in where the student is joining where the vendor ID on the vendor ID, vendor ID equals invoice ID. That makes no sense at all. Because It's like saying where your IQ equals your shoe size. I mean, okay, there probably are people like that. They have very big feet or very small IQs. Questions? Okay. Don't have a whole lot more to say on views. What else have I got in here? That's about it. Let me double check. Database views. I have the check option. Okay, design independence. Benefits provided by a view. Take a look at these. Lots of times the data might change. You might have to split out a table or something, split one table into two or merge a table or something. You may have other code that depends on those data not changing, and you might not feel like changing it right now, all of your code. Therefore, you create a view to make the data look like it used to look. We may change the design of the database and then modify the view as necessary so that queries that use the view do not need to be changed right now. Probably a good idea to go look at them later. But I use a view to rename a table. I will almost never rename a table. Renaming a table is considered drastic. What would I probably do? I want the table is named vendors, and I want it named sellers. What am I going to do? Create view, sellers, as, select, star from vendors, semicolon, go. Now it's just a view. It's fully updatable, shows the same data. The user thinks the name's changed. It hasn't. Anything you do to sellers goes straight through it to vendors. Okay. Don't need a check option there. Data security, we've talked about that. Views may be created that provide access only to the data. Flexibility. I like it because a view simplifies by hiding that derived table up in the create view. I separate the two and I can test one of them separately from the other. I could still test it separately, but I like to get that view created, get it working like I want it to, and then I can join that view with another table. Updatability. With certain restrictions, view is able to update, insert, and delete from the base table. I can give a user the ability, the permission to insert into a view, but not to insert into the table under it. Okay, so therefore they have a way to update that table, but only the rows that they're given in that view. Let's see what else we have on here. Some examples. Updating database views. I talk a little bit about it. In general, updating a view is updatable if it has all of the required fields, meaning I can insert into a table. If I can get away with inserting just into I can insert into a view. If I could get away with inserting into the table and providing, only that information. A view is I can update a view, meaning change the data, execute an update, if I can uniquely specify one row. If I've got a bunch of joins in there, they typically throw a monkey wrench into things. Sometimes you can update a joined table. I'm not going to go into that now. I think I go a little bit more into this than I need to. There's some good stuff in there. I don't know. I think I set this to practice quiz. This quiz does not have a gradebook entry for it. You can take a look at it. See what the assignment is here. Exercises. Write a create view statement. Basically, most of these guys are fairly easy SQL statements. Write the SQL statement, get it working, slap the create view, name it as on top of it, test it. Remember, it has to go inside of its own Go block. So create the view, you have to say go, create the view, and then at the end of it, if you've got anything else after that, you need to go between them all. You probably should have a, if it exists, drop it. Questions? Oh, yes. Access, well, I said that in Access, when you create a query in Access, you're really creating a view because you save it. Well, in Access, there is no such word as view, right? In an SQL server environment, little s for server, meaning Oracle, MySQL, or SQL Server. When you type a query, you say run that query, it runs, it gives you an answer, but you don't save it. Now you can save it as a file. So you're free, that's a script. So you say, I want to save it as myfile.sql. That's fine, now you can open it and run it again. But it exists in just ASCII code. When you say create a view, now you save it in the database. And I'll show you. If I go into my databases, go to AP, notice that I have a tab there for views. So my view exists now as an object in the database. Questions? Okay, I'm going to wrap us up there. Remember, next week we do not meet due to Thanksgiving. Somebody told me I wasn't allowed to say Thanksgiving. They won't let me say what? It's kind of the way I feel about it. Okay, I'm going to turn off the record. I'm going to make the assignment. So check the assignment. I need to go through the assignment and don't just grab it right away. Give me a little bit of time here. I'm going to be here till about 2 o'clock anyway. So give me time to go through it and look at it and make sure I want to assign all. And from chapter 11, by the way, I did not mean to assign number 5, the cube. Everybody tried it. I looked at it anyway. Not most people didn't get it. I didn't really cover it. I did not mean to assign it. I regret that. If you did it, good on you. If you did it and it didn't work, oh well. I graded the others. So better stop the record. I'm gonna sneeze. I can. I can put them out on Canvas. I have not. I will though. Okay, stopping the record.